Senate Bill 2347, methamphetamine, revised penalty for simple possession of certain amounts.
I make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Thank you. If you recognize Senator Sparks to handle the bill.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 2347 addresses methamphetamine. I've presented this bill a couple different times. We've passed it, I believe, on this end. The minor methamphetamine possession currently for a misdemeanor is under 1/10 of a gram. Anything that's 1/10 to 2/10 is punished by a 3-year felony crime. We'll offer an amendment at the proper time to the bill. The language that is before you in the bill is very similar to the amendment, but we just got with the Department of Mental Health for some good better terminology as it relates. But the gist of the bill is that we would raise that 1/10 to 1 gram. Therefore, if it is 1 gram or less, it would be a misdemeanor punishable by a fine, not more than 30 days in jail for a first offense. On a second offense, it would be no less than 5 days, up to 6 months. But in both of those occasions, we want the individual to have an assessment required under a certified department certified provider from the Department of Mental Health to address this issue. And on the second offense, that there is a treatment provided that they would be required to take. And that is the purpose of that is the methamphetamine convictions are often occurring 1.5 to 2 years after an arrest because of the backlog at the crime lab. And generally, I don't know casual methamphetamine users. If somebody's using methamphetamine, they are addicted, and if we catch them early and they go to a misdemeanor court where they will get in front of a judge within most likely 30 days or so, that they can have this issue addressed before they eventually end up with a property crime or some other crime. So it will continue to be from 1 gram to 2 grams will be a felony, and that crime will be raised to 5 years from the 3 years. The reason for that is that our intervention courts are a 5-year jurisdiction, and some judges are uncomfortable pleading people into intervention court for that smaller quantity felony because with only 3 years, they don't feel like they have jurisdiction that they would keep over them. The other thing that would happen on a third offense, even on the low quantity of a gram or less, it would also be a felony and it would be a 5-year crime. That is an explanation of the bill. There is an amendment that cleans that language up a little bit and asks to put that on the screen.
Let's adopt the bill first and then we'll do the amendment, sir.
I have no committee sub. It's the original bill, and I still adopt the original bill?
Yeah. Do you have an amendment?
I have an amendment that I would like to have considered for adoption and not pass final passage on the actual bill.
Right. So we'll adopt the bill.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I got called on a point of order for that earlier.
Okay, we'll go on the amendment, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment to the bill, if it's up on the screen again, as I explained, it's a gram or less. A first offense would be a misdemeanor, and the court shall require the defendant to be assessed whether the defendant should participate in a drug treatment program approved by the Department of Mental Health, unless the court enters a written finding that that treatment is inappropriate. On the second offense, again, the punishment is there. The court will require the defendant to participate in a drug treatment program approved by the Department of Mental Health from a certified provider unless the court enters a written finding that that is inappropriate. A third offense within 5 years shall be a felony even for that lower amount, and it's a 5-year felony. The further amendment is that there was a repealer in this bill that was the wrong year. It is 27 changed to 29, and the date of active, again, I've dropped this bill before, so 2022 is in the bill for the effective date. That would be changed to 2025. I would yield any questions on the amendment.
Questions on the amendment? Senator Simmons? Okay. No, seeing no questions, Senator, we're ready for your motion.
If there are no questions, I would move for adoption of the amendment.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
And if there are no further questions, I'd move for passage on the morning roll call.
Okay, Senator Simmons now.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment at the appropriate time.
Please proceed. Senator Hill, for what purpose?
Question.
One moment, we're going to do the amendment first, Senator, and then come right back to your question on the bill. Senator Simmons.
Yes, sir. Excellent.
Okay, Senator Simmons is recognized. We're on the amendment. It's on the screen, Senators.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. And to the senators, the amendment that is showing on the screen is being actually updated based upon the amendment that was just adopted. We did prepare the amendment before we adopted the amendment that Chairman Sparks just passed. And as I understand it, they are getting us the updated copy of the amendment to conform with the amendment that was just adopted. May I proceed, Mr. President?
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, what this amendment does in our code where we have a misdemeanor amount of marijuana, it conforms exactly with the spirit of what Chairman Sparks just presented as relates to meth. And so what the amendment does is for the misdemeanor amount of marijuana currently that exists in the code, we want the Department of Mental Health to allow those who are charged with the misdemeanor amount of marijuana the same opportunity that they are afforded in the bill that's before you regarding methamphetamine. And so it's a drug training program approved by the Department of Mental Health from a department certified provider unless the court enters a written finding that a drug training program is inappropriate, which tracks the exact same language of what was just adopted for meth. That's an explanation of the amendment, and I'll yield to any questions, Mr. President.
Questions on the amendment? Senator Sparks?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Simmons, and I appreciate you talking with me about this amendment. This is the felony conviction as it relates to marijuana, correct?
In the code, it allows for marijuana at this misdemeanor amount to be treated as a misdemeanor or felony.
Correct, but the language you're asking to strike would eliminate the felony, correct?
The intent of the amendment is just to treat the misdemeanor portion of marijuana as currently that it exists in the code to allow for that drug training program for marijuana for that misdemeanor amount. And so nowhere where it actually in the code where it is a felony, that the intent is to make sure just the misdemeanor portion of marijuana is allowed to be treated for the
I have no problem with the concept of the court being able to order that. I think they could order it currently, but if you strike the language, and I realize this is an either or, this is for 30 grams but less than 250 grams. So this is an amount that you are correct. The code allows it to be a 1 year in the county jail, which we've always deemed as a misdemeanor. But as I read the amendment, you're trying to strike or by a fine of not more than $3,000 imprisonment, Department of Corrections, not more than 3 years or both, and then insert this language. If you're just wanting to insert this language, I have no problem with the amendment, but if you're striking that last part, you're actually striking the felony portion of this possession.
The amount in the original bill that was before the Senate, was that just for misdemeanor? The misdemeanor portion of meth? Or was it the felony amount of meth?
It raised the misdemeanor cap up to 1 gram, but I'm just saying the effectiveness, unless you tell me I'm wrong, of your amendment strikes the felonious portion of this level of marijuana possession.
Well, Senator Sparks, out of all honesty, what the intent of the amendment is, as I recall from a committee, meth had a 0.1 gram that was, in fact, before the adoption of your amendment a minute ago, was a felony amount. 0.1 grams or more.
Between 1 gram and 0.11 would be.
So when that was presented to the committee, and when the bill passed out of committee, the concern was that small amount, aside from it in the code being a felony, that small amount of meth, a lot of people had an addiction related to that small amount. And we were trying to give those individuals the help that they needed. And so what I did in my amendment, when I got it drafted with Legislative Services, I wanted to do the exact same thing that you did with meth for marijuana, the smallest amount of marijuana, and give them the help that they need as well. So that's the intent. And if you can support that, if this is not the right language, then I certainly would love for your support. But I want to do the same thing that you are doing for methamphetamine. I want to do the same thing for those people in Mississippi who abuse marijuana.
And again, I don't have a problem with the concept that you verbally explained, but the amendment as written, and I'm amenable to a reverse repealer in this bill. I'll work with you to try to get that language, but I want to be very clear. You're talking about 30 grams to 250 grams. The current law with marijuana is anything under 30 grams is already a misdemeanor.
But also 30 grams to 250 grams is also a misdemeanor.
It's either or.
It's either or.
It's either or misdemeanor, but I do not support striking the felonious level of punishment that is the either or, but I'm proud to support the treatment. And as I believe you just have testified, not testified, but stated from the well, some people are addicted to marijuana. So it's an addictive substance that you think needs to be treated just like what I believe is an addictive substance of methamphetamine.
And I agree with that. The felony portion of marijuana, that could be handled at disposition from whatever judge.
That's fine. Would you be willing to withdraw your amendment and let's offer a reverse repealer, and I'll work with you?
Can we see how long it takes the Legislative Services to draft that amendment? I just want it in the bill when we transmit it to the House. And the goal, again, so I'm clear to you and also to the members of the chamber, I don't want to change the felony portion. What could be treated as a felony when they go in front of a judge? If the judge determines it's a felony, it's a felony. But to the extent a judge, for that amount that's currently existing in law, it's treated as a misdemeanor, I want them to get the treatment that they need. Of course, our felony amounts of marijuana, as you know, Chairman Sparks, could go through the drug court or intervention program with the DA and whatever attorney that person may be represented by at the circuit court level. They still can get that in intervention court. But I just want to make sure in our municipal and justice courts that we give the same opportunity for marijuana for smallest amount that you presented for meth.
Then I would suggest that I will have an amendment to your amendment.
That's fine.
At the proper time.
That's fine. And thank you for your support.
Questions on the amendment, Senator Fillingham?
Thank you, Mr. President. For a point of order,
Please proceed.
I would make the motion that the amendment is not germane to the original bill.
One moment, please.
And I'd like to be heard on the point.
Senator Simmons, you're recognized to speak to the point.
Thank you, Mr. President. The original bill dealt with a drug training program approved by the Department of Mental Health for a small amount of a drug that's currently under Title 41, our controlled substance statute. And this basically is under Title 41. There's a drug under that statute, and it also deals with a drug training program approved by the Department of Mental Health. I think it is germane.
Chair, the President rules it's not germane to the bill. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Back on the bill.
Mr. President, I yield to any questions.
Questions? We're back on the bill. Questions? Seeing none, Senator?
Move for final passage. We've adopted the amendment, correct?
Yes, sir, you did.
Final passage on morning roll call.
Use of the morning roll call has been requested. Anyone object to the procedure? Or is voting no? Hill, no. Tate, no. Chisholm, no. Philman, Ladner, no. Seymour, no. Whaley, no. Anyone else? Barfield, no. Present. Rumfield, present. Parker, no. Parker, no. Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing none, the bill passes by use of morning roll call.